Bam. Hi, I'm Seamless, and today is Saturday, which means it's time for a new weekly live stream. It's always time for a new weekly live stream on Saturdays and also Sundays, but my schedule has kind of prevented me from doing one for the last like 4 weeks. I've done one within 4 weeks, but it's been crappy, is what I've been saying. So today's Saturday, and I kind of want to keep the track from scratch streams on Sunday. So today is going to actually be like a normal live stream, and by normal, you probably think I'm talking about doing guests and stuff, except that I haven't had a guest in a while. It's because I've just been forgetting to get them. But today I'm going to do kind of what the old school streams were like. The old school streams were basically me doing open QAs and people asking me questions and me answering them and doing kind of like an interactive tutorial kind of deal. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to get rid of XSplit until someone inevitably asks how I do my recording, which is when I'll probably bring that back and do that. Okay, so who's got questions? Someone said, hi, Mom. That's cool. Seamless is the Epiphone Explorer 1984 a good guitar in your opinion? I like Explorers. I like the body type. Epiphones are solid. 1984, though, it's an interesting manufacturing decade for certain things. But I'm not very picky about guitars. I'm just picky about the pickups. So that would depend on that. Can you frequency sidechaining in one instance of Maximus? Yes, but not in the way that you probably think. What you would do, like for example, if you had a harmor, I just put in 2 harmors, that's fine. Let's say that I wanted to sidechain the snare to just the frequency section of Maximus that the snare occupies, which would, let's look at snare. Cool. So I'm going to make some harmor shenanigans. Yeah. I'm going to put... Now, what I'm going to do with Maximus, you could probably do just with a regular EQ, like pretty clearly. So let's say you wanted to sidechain just the frequency spectrum that the snare occupies, which if we look at it, it's pretty much right here, the 148, 150 hertz-ish area. So with basically the same way that I would do Maximus. Where's Maximus? Where is it? There it is. So you want to sidechain like just a section of the frequencies. Like the way that I've done it before is actually a hell of a lot more complicated than what I'm about to do. But the way you can do it now is you can basically go into your snare and make a peak controller. How many of you saw this coming? Peak controller, and unmute it. Notice I set the bass to 50% because that's actually where the pre-gain is, at 50%. And then I turn the volume down to negative 100 or negative 200% actually. And so what this is doing is I moved the bass. Yeah. So what it's doing now is that it's outputting the value of 50%, and then the volume is negative, coming in negative. So when there's peak data coming from the snare, it's interpreted downward. So now I'm going to link this controller to the peak. Now I did the mids. So let's go take the mids and bring it to the correct section, which is like what 150 something. So I'm going to do like 145 to like 160. Which is incredibly short, but let's make it a bit more obvious so we can kind of see what happens in the EQ spectrum. Kind of see it doing it. But now that I brought you here, you can kind of see the other sort of faster way of doing this, which is you just have an EQ slider. You need to do the exact same thing. Link it to the big controller. Even make it tighter. And that's all there is to that. What other questions we got? Neuropluck thingy from Noisia Tryhard. Save that for the 40K tutorials. When's my next FL Studio based tutorial? I kind of fell off on doing that, and I should really keep up, like do more, because I was in the middle of doing Citrus as a series, kind of like how I did Harmor as a series, and I should probably just do that again. And the way the schedule that I had for that was Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and then I just stopped. So I should probably just get back on that. Seamless, you have your beard back. I did not, what? We can explain what neuro means. Neuro is a style. We're mostly referring to neurofunk, but like for example, when this is kind of like how everyone refers to like certain sound sets as dubstep. Like people who are new to the EDM and producing whatever, they say, "Oh, that's a really great dubstep," but it's an electro track. And it's because sounds that are kind of emblematic of the dubstep genre are in electro tracks, and it kind of like cross pollinates, creating like, "Oh, look at that dubstep sound is in this track," whatever. And so it gets a lot of genre confusing. So then we have neuro, and neuro is a lot of kind of like old school drum and bass neurofunk kind of sound sets with Reese's and resampling and kind of stuff. Real high end sound design. And so then we get neurofunk and neurohop and neurostep and all this stuff. And like that's sort of how that works, is that the neuro elements have cross pollinated into more modern genres. If I ever used the Haas effect, I know what that is. Someone actually talked to me about this recently. That's the delay thing, the stereo delay thing. Sometimes I have sometimes done that. How can I get a hold of label's attention? Preferably Frequency Label. Frequency Label is called Upscale Upscale Recordings. That's his label. Send them demos. Send people demos. Okay. Contrary to popular belief, an individual can listen to a lot of stuff. Like when I did the Resolve remix competition, I received like 200 entries at least, and I didn't have a problem listening to all of them. Because when we listen to demos, listen to entries and stuff like that, we don't actually like. This actually comes from other A&R guys as well. But like the kind of process is that like you listen to like the first like 30-ish seconds of the intro to make sure like just see what's going to go anywhere, and then you find the drop, and then you listen to the drop, and then if the drop is impressive, then you listen to the rest of the track, then you listen to the whole thing together. But like if you do those two things, and it's not something that immediately grabs you, or it's something that's obviously terrible, or if it's something that just doesn't fit the label's goal or whatever, then we don't listen to the rest of the track. So it's just kind of like, no, no, kind of. And the way that I did it with the remix pile was that I did that. I went, no, no, maybe. And then I put it in the maybe pile. And then I kind of whittled down the 200 entries to like 50 entries. And then I will whittle that down to like 20 entries, and then eventually 10 entries. So that's kind of how that works out. So like, you think that like, oh, I'll send a demo to Firepower and they just won't listen to it because there's so many demo submissions. How can we listen to all of them? They listen to all of them. They do. And if your stuff is what they want, then they'll want it. It's really all there is to that. Actively trying to get their attention outside of their prescribed demo submission system only guarantees that they will go out of their way to ignore you. So like, be aware. How do you make a kick drum from scratch? I actually want, the answer to this is pretty basic, but like, I want to talk about what punch means. And this is related to that question. So let's look at my harmonic that I have here. I'm actually going to go and turn it into only a sine wave by going into local EQ and turning off all the harmonics. So that's only a sine wave. So now I'm going to go into pitch, and I'm going to start real high and come down real low. A little higher than that. Look at that. Kind of sounds like a kick drum. It's a shitty kick drum, but it's still. But it still sounds like it. This is the center of every kick drum. Not only is it the center of kick drums, but if you look at the EQ, that should look pretty familiar. Kick drum. Hooray. And then you add like high frequency stuff or whatever, and you make a kick drum. But like this is the reason why I framed this as saying, how do you make punch? And I don't necessarily mean punch. I mean this idea of like the pulsing kick thumpiness. Like why is it thumping even though it's just a pitch sliding single oscillator? What's up with that? And it's because of the sliding that it's sweeping through so many frequencies at once that we're hearing all the frequencies at once. Like we can't discern a slide. It doesn't sound slidey until the very end where it slows down. But for the first couple of seconds where it gets pretty low, it just sounds like a whole bunch of frequencies at once, and then we're off really fast. So that gets us the sound of punch. But if we play a higher note, let's say a much higher than that. I'm gonna try and get there without, yeah. Let's actually, how high is that? That's pretty high. That's way higher than I want to go. This same principle applies to snares. It might not be obvious by doing it just like this, but watch what happens when we look at something that has a particular kind of snare effect. Let's look at EQ. It's really hard to see, but you can kind of see the same punch, like pew pew kind of deal. And it's the and the reason why we do this, I mean, we have done it in the past, you know, because Cohen sounded it and it sounded pretty cool, but we still get the punch out of it because we hear the sweep, we hear all the frequencies, and it comes together and it comes at us punchier than if it was just a static snare tone frequency like a regular snare drum is. And what's funny about this is that the original I don't actually know how Cohen Sound did their snares originally, but people's reactions to it were to layer a snare with a tom. Now, the funny thing about toms is that they're essentially tiny kick drums. Like, that's how they're constructed. And they behave similarly, just at a higher pitch. And so you can layer a tom against a snare at the right frequency and then distort it, and then you get the Cohen Sound snare sound. And then AU5, when he makes his snares, he doesn't necessarily do that, but he'll take a snare sound that has like the high frequency content, and then he'll do the pitch modulating movement on the snare itself in a sampler that he uses. Actually, he uses Slice X now. How cool is that? But you use it. You just basically pitch mod it to go pew pew pew. This is right at the very beginning, and we get additional punch, much like how we did when it was a kick drum. So that answered the guy's question, but I also went on a big rant about punch. X-core kicks, X-core layers toms with snares. I believe it's 2 sounds paired to left and right. Talk about the Haas effect still. Oh, what the stereo separation knob do? Yeah. Kicks, pitch down, lasers. Ad block plus. Okay, so stereo separation. Let's talk about stereo separation now. The stereo separation knob does not make a mono sound into a stereo sound. It just exacerbates if there's a stereo signal. So, like for example, if I have a harmonic sound, and over here there's this stereo separation knob, it does absolutely nothing when there's no stereo information. But if I do a little bit, it's doing this. Basically, it's basically built-in mid-side. Like I think that's how they explained it to me before, and I might be wrong about that. So don't like quote me. But this is the mid. This is the side. What the hell is mid-side? Well, mid-side kind of like you especially see like mid-side EQ and mid-side is whatever, mid-side compression, and you might be thinking it has something to do with like the middle of the frequencies and then like the New York compression style kind of things. But actually, it's very simple. It's when you have a signal, you have basically the information that's mono, that's in the center channel or the middle. That's what it means by mid, the middle. And then you have the sides, which are left and right. When you put them together, you get the total stereo signal. So like if I were to route this into 2 different channels, and then make one only side and one only mid, it sounds exactly the same. So when these knobs move it around, it turns down the mid or the side, respectively, as a result. Leaves a bad taste in my ears. That's the thing I said. What's the best way to make a mono sound stereo? There is no best way. That's because it's not an easy thing to do. Like, for example, the saw wave that I have here, the best way to make that stereo is to use unison. However, if you do that, it doesn't necessarily sound like the original saw wave anymore, especially when it's bass. Like if I use too much unison, doesn't sound like a saw wave anymore at all, but it's pretty stereo. How do you make just the run? How do you make just the one thing stereo? You could layer reverb, like really short decay, big stereo reverb. You can do that. You can use choruses, which are basically a sort of a fake unison. Because unison is not an audio effect; it's a voice effect, which means that you require multiple voices to do the unison result. But chorus effects kind of mimic what unison does. That's another way to add stereo with something. There's also like stereo imaging plugins that are designed to do just that. They're designed to add stereo to something. Like I believe I have one called Acoustics. It's pretty cool. By Toad 2. This was a suggestion. It was suggested that I use this by BT and AU5. They use this plugin, and it's pretty cool. It kind of behaves weird in FL, so I don't really use it very often. And like, again, like with the unison, certain settings kind of take away the original saw quality. And of course, there's the Haas effect, which someone mentioned before, which I'm pretty sure is the effect that I'm thinking about. This is what I mean by behaves weird. See this just going on? It goes away eventually. And this has to do with using the stereo shaper, where we delay the left channel or the right channel. The problem with this, though, is that it very noticeably leans one side or another. So that's what this phase knob's for. You can kind of get a decent, mix of one thing or another. I'm using something pretty difficult to mix stereo, which is a very dry saw wave, but like, this is how you do it if you need to. If you really need to. I don't recommend you do. This seems cool. MDA stereo Haas effect and cool comb filter works on mono. Wait, clone of a bass, page 1 left and right. If you cloned a saw wave and panned itself left and right, it would sound exactly the same. How comes it? Stop. Oh, no. I wanted to read that guy's question. Damn it. I lost it. Wait. How? Damn it. How comes every track by sounds like? Did that about to say how come everything sounds like crap on a phone? Because that's a weird question. Why does everything sound like crap on a phone? It's because it's on a phone. Come on. Also, even if you have like a basic speakers, like if you just plug it in your monitors into your phone, it's because most phones have internal EQing and stuff like that. I know the iPod does. Do you listen to, I don't know how to pronounce that? No. What is something that you find helps overcome writer's block in music? Writing other tracks. This is a funny conversation I had with someone about the track from scratch that I did, the glitch hop track. I would not have finished that track. Like if it was just a track that I was making on my own, I wouldn't have finished that track. The only reason why I finished it is because I was making a goddamn series of producing it. And like I was doing it live. And because that's how you do that. That's how you deal with writer's block, is you could work on something else and then you come back fresh and you have better ideas. That's how you do that. Is Fractal someone I can trust? Like he said, he liked what I was doing on a track that and what I could fix. Maybe he's just being nice. No, he's a nice dude, but I'm pretty sure whatever he says on the matter is accurate. Seems, do you know how somebody made black gold vocoder? I had to listen to it to find out. Which I'm not going to listen. I don't listen to stuff on streams because then YouTube cracks down with content ID. How come track my sounds like shit on mobile phone, like every sound, putting everything on there, but my studio monitors. Your question doesn't make sense. Are you saying it sounds like it's on a phone coming out of your speakers? Maybe you have really crappy speakers. LFO going into sweeps, buildups. How do you go about doing the LFO? Sweeps and buildups. Okay, so it's kind of like, they're not exactly LFOs. I do two primary kinds of risers. My favorite one is a hardware riser, and the way this works is I use the phaser. So the phaser by default is basically a rolling filter, like so. So what I do is I modulate the speed. But that's about as fast as it goes. So then what I do is I go to a custom shape by right-clicking on this shape option here. And then I basically double the size of the shape. And then it goes faster. Or even more fast. By doubling the size of the shape. I may also modulate the width. So that's a pretty big part. And then I also move up the pitch of the thing as it goes over. And I do that with the piano roll by like starting real low and then making a slide note and going real high. And that's a good time. That's the basis of how I do hardware risers. And then like I add unison and prism, and I also modulate the prism, which can be fun. That was a big part of how I made the riser in Tachycardia, which is an old drum and bass track I've done, which there's a making of and a playthrough of on my YouTube channel, which you can watch. Tachycardia, like the heart problem. And then I do citrus risers, FM risers. And you can do this with FM8 too, some basic part. And this is where I basically do like a very small demonstration of how FM works. So let's say I have a pitch, right? And then I FM it. By default, it sounds weird, but if I were to bring it all the way down, it does that. And then if I increase the pitch, This is actually how I feel it's like a big part of how a lot of like original pendulum risers sound, like knife party risers are based in this kind of stuff. That's a theory. And so what's fun though is that if you make different shapes, like and then like the harmonizer, I'll do a note and then a slide note, which you kind of gotta be careful about because FM increases with speed with pitch. So even if I start with a low enough note, and then I go up higher, even if I'm not increasing the pitch of the modulator, it'll increase in speed all its own. However, I didn't even get that fast. Like, that sound you're hearing is referred to as aliasing. And that happens when you're creating frequencies that go above the Nyquist limit. The Nyquist limit being half the sample rate, which in this case is 44.1. So I created frequencies that went above 22.05 kilohertz. And when that happens, it will wrap around back on itself. Instead of going higher in the frequency spectrum, instead of being like, oh, it's going higher, and then, oh, yeah, limit, no. It actually and goes the other way and becomes lower frequencies. And it's a weird phenomenon. I don't know why mathematically that happens, but it does. And the way you deal with that is through resampling. In the audio settings, you set your resampling. I have it on linear, so it's going to do that. But the thing is, though, even if I didn't have it on linear, it would still do that. So what you have to do is you actually have to set your resampling inside Citrus. And this is because FL knows and ImageLine knows that aliasing can sometimes be a really cool effect. So when a particular synth like Citrus, for example, is doing it, and this is also why every plugin has its own resampling thing. Like this has resampling. I don't know if Harmor has resampling. Like it might somewhere. Like the delay module has resampling. The Wave Shaper has resampling, which makes sense because it's a distortion plugin. So obviously it's going to create a lot of very high frequencies and that kind of thing. But if I were to do this again with all the resampling on, it's not aliasing at all. But then if I turn it off, like that's aliasing. So if I do resampling, it did a little bit. Like it did it like as it got too high. So let's look at the EQ for a second, see what's it really doing. So you saw it, like it kept going up and up and up and up, and then it was like fuck you, and it came back down, 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 down. And then if I did X2 resampling, it had to go higher before I started doing it. So I can do X4 resampling. It's still going up because it's pretty fucking high. It's an X8. That actually kept it. So then I would have to use X8. But notice also that it says we have the render options. We have draft and render. And you have resampling for rendering, resampling for drafting. So this means that if I kept this on and I rendered this, it would render without the aliasing noise. Because the resampling does use extra CPU. So like if that's a problem for you, that's a problem for you. But I usually have resampling off, and I also have resampling off for this reason, because also this is pretty CPU intensive for CPU intensive things, which I actually just haven't been doing for a while. So I should probably keep it at like 6 point or whatever. But this is the same resampling setting, by the way, that you get when you do renders. So notice I have it on 128, which means that if I do stuff that aliases and a render, like I do in Citrus, it's not going to alias when you render the track. And that's a pretty big reason why a track will sound different if you render, like if you render it without resampling and you had resampling, that's there's a bunch of aliasing everywhere. Or if you made sounds that used the aliasing as part of its texture, and then you render it with the resampling on, then the aliasing is gone, and then a big part of how your sound is built is gone. So that's cool. Some sort of collab for getting through producer's block. I guess that's a good thing to do, I guess. But I think I have like more producer's block doing a collab. Like I'm still doing the Missing Identity collaboration because he won the Resolve Resolve remix. That was one of the prizes, was a collaboration with me. And I'm still doing that because damn, I just am awful at collaborations. Okay, so how does you do massive in that? How does you do massive in that neat mono? How does you do? Fucking Ustream. Actually, if I do this, how does you do massive in that mono so that the stereo goes into massive with the second mono so that it goes other way with stereo and second low frequency? So it goes into massive with third Vocodex. I have no idea what you're saying. This is the guy I was reading. If you were confused, you pause it and try and figure out what he's saying. Sorry. Why does my FL CPU meter show 80% when my PC CPU shows 5%? No idea. I have no idea whatsoever. It's some Windows thing. It's not a thing I know about. I understand killing the noise far too loud, so on basis that sound distorted like at high frequencies. If I said this is fascinating. Yeah, well, far too loud. He actually has a tutorial on how he made a bass in his track 600 Years. Kill the Noise uses hardware processing. Like he does massive basses in massive, and then he processes it with hardware. How can I find producers to talk to? I have people on my Skype, but I feel like it's more listening to their tracks and them asking me how to make my basses. I just want to better myself as a whole. Well, there's going to come a time in a producer's career where you're going to kind of run out of people who have stuff to teach you. And that's good because it means that you're learning stuff. But I mean, then you're also going to kind of realize that like a lot of the producers that you look up to or have producers productions that you've heard, it's not as if they had as hardcore an idea of what they're doing as you thought they did. But I would suggest places like forums and Reddit and chat rooms like IRC chat rooms for producers or whatever, like the Reddit IRC chat room for the subreddit our EDM production. Those are full of people who are always doing cool stuff and they're competent individuals. I like hanging out there. I don't know who Foxic is. Can you go over some theory behind Epic Chords and Seven Lions tune? Sure, I guess I can do that in a second. I'll still read questions. Best formula of working a collab with another producer? No, I don't have one. Get OTT. I think I have OTT. Why did contact sound screwed up? I'm gonna assume you said screwed, which I know you didn't. When I render. Don't know. I don't use contact. I was saying go great. That's the guy. Second, I still don't know what you're trying to say, dude. Best way to make a sub bass. Sine waves. Froxic. No, I don't. 3 instruments project that can hear it. Doesn't want to minute take for too much room. We use feature solve that. It's called compression that solves that. There's no theory behind it. They're just chords. Calling it chords is kind of a theory thing. Do you ever see Skrillex live? No. I actually watch a lot live. Tutorial on music theory and the way you use chords. In general music theory questions, I would advise that you go look at Varian's theory tutorials. It is YouTube Varian. He has tutorials on theory, and they're good. Heavy UK sub bass. I don't know what that means. It's probably a Reese. It's probably not that. It's probably like, oh, look, a sub. Sub. Oh, another sub. Oh, let's change pitch. Maybe distort one. Is that what you're talking about? Why did I call that a Reese? I call that a Reese because you have two of the exact same waveform against each other and one is a different pitch. That's called detuning. This is what they mean when they say detune two saws. You get a Reese. And the reason why this works is because the waveforms being a different size from each other, when you start in the same phase, they eventually get out of phase because the period lengths from the start to the end of one individual cycle are different lengths. And so they'll get kind of out of sync. And then they'll get far enough out of sync that the positive area of one waveform will align with the negative area of the exact same, which means that it'll cancel out. Which we can see in the frequency spectrum. Now, the reason why it does that kind of cascadey thing, like when you have a higher frequency thing, like more distortion. You can actually kind of see what happens. Like look at the first harmonic and the fundamental tone. The fundamental tone being the lowest note. Now look at the first harmonic in the EQ. It's phase canceling too, but it's phase canceling twice as fast. That's because it's twice as fast. It's the next octave up, which means its frequency level is twice as much. So it's faster. Pitch equals speed. Same thing with the next highest harmonic and all that good stuff. So the speed increases, and that's why we get, when we look at like a saw wave, when we look at a saw wave, we can see the sine wave. This fun cascading kind of thing going on. And that's because all the frequencies are different speeds, but they're related. So that means that it's a smooth kind of transition. That's how Reese's work. Hi, Stevie. Hi, George. I guess since you're new here, I can make you a mod. Do that. Yeah. Explain how stereo shaper works. I did that already. Someone at my band talking on Facebook. I hate making sub basses in Harmor. It has weird high frequency even when I filter it down. Well, don't filter it down. I mean, honestly, making a sub in Harmor is kind of a little overkill for Harmor. But if you really wanted to, you could just go into the local EQ. Just get rid of it completely. Although I would posit that you would want a little bit of high frequency action anyway. I have used a sub bass to layer under stuff like twice, and both times I've used this. Compulsory to push everything in bass range to mono my master. Compulsory, if by that I mean a good idea, then yes. The reason why you do that is because stereo spreading stuff usually means that there's different pitches involved, and if you do that and you keep it stereo, you might run into phase cancellation out of your bass, and that's not something you want. Like, not on purpose anyway. Oversampling and resampling. In the case that we discussed with the stuff with the FL, like the rendering or whatever, it's the same thing. Why would you make it sound heartbreaking? It's so easy to do with Citrus. It's so easy. It's easy. You can do it with 3x OSC. You don't need to do it with anything, really. It started at 5 o'clock. It meant to start at 4:30, George, but it started at 5. Can you shout out the Twisted? Actually, I totally have a shout out list. Is this it? Yeah, it is. Let's do a shout out to L Essentials. I don't think this counts as a tutorial, or whatever. And I think he wanted me to do a shout out at a different time, or was that Project Vega? I don't know. These guys, shout out to these guys. By the way, if you haven't, if you donated to my Patreon campaign and you haven't gotten your rewards, look at your email that you used to donate to it, because I sent out emails. And if I still haven't done it, email me anyway, just to check to make sure that we are all on the same page. Do I have links off? I hope I have links off. I do have links off. Good. Favorite song for Recess? Raga Bomb. What do I use for reverb? I use Valhalla Room, Valhalla Shimmer, Reverb 2, and Fruity Convolver. In what track do you spend more time making it, more than 80 hours? I don't think I've done that, like, at all. I don't know that I've done that. Like, my tracks kind of average like 40 hours. I wonder how long I spent making Codename Hurricane. Probably like, if at most, like 60 hours. I don't know that I spent 80 hours on that track. Did I made the Leviathan pack from Black Octopus? I did not make the Leviathan pack from Black Octopus. I made some parts of the Leviathan pack from Black Octopus. I made a couple loops that are in the music loops and some drums. That's what I've done. But like, I made like maybe 5% of the sounds in that track, in that thing. Make D&B drum patterns. There were really only so many D&B drum patterns. Like, there's a finite amount of them. Like, just listen to tracks that you like, that have beats that you like, and try doing that. Like, eventually you'll start to see patterns and you'll just put stuff down. Do I like Stranger? Did you like Stranger? Kind of. It's a lot of vocals. I checked it like 2 weeks ago. 25. I really only spent 25 hours. I really feel like I should have spent more than that. Like, man. Although, like, I did make a track recently for a thing that I'm not going to show you at any point ever that was really, like, one of my more impressive things that I only spent, like, 10 hours on. So, I think that's good. Metal guitar recording tutorial. Get a audio interface. Old school jungle. Seamless old school jungle. Was that a question? Pinko. Seamless, do I have contact with Raziel? I think so. I'm pretty sure I do. Was he on one of our streams? Best way to record guitar with DAW. So, all right. In FL, the way you do recording is that you have a interface of some kind. It has a microphone input. You got your drivers on. You're using them. Like, up in my audio settings, notice I'm not using ASI for all. I'm using Payfire Studio, which is the PreSonus drivers for their interfaces. And this is my driver. And here's a bunch of other drivers I'm not using. And then here's my driver. And then when you have a driver, you go into your mixer insert, and then you can see you have in and out on any single one. By default, your output is just output 1. I have a lot more outputs, as you can see. But in inputs, we also have our inputs. It basically arranges your inputs based. You can either do like 1 and 2 at the same time for stereo input, or you can do just mono inputs. And so for a guitar, for example, which is a 1/4 inch input, most interfaces have dual purpose inputs. They usually are XLR/1/4 inch inputs. So you can put in either a mic cable or a guitar cable, which is how XLR and 1/4 inch are differentiated. And you use that, and then you go in here, say, cool, I want to record. So put in input number 4, and then you do recording. You put, like, I'll put Edison in here, and go like, do recording, yeah, put it in, record it in Edison, and then that's in the track now. Like, when I record single instruments, I use Edison. Versus if I'm recording a drum kit and I have a whole crap ton of microphones and a bunch of inserts, then I'll do the actual playlist recording process. Okay, try and get culprit or feed me on live stream. Sure. I mean, I'll try. Not feed me, Spore. One or the other, right? They're the same person. What's good, fairly cheap audio interface for guitar? There's a couple that are like $8 that are like, just go to the Zounds or Musician's Friend or Sweetwater and type in audio interface and order by price, and you'll see a bunch that are just like a 1/4-inch input to USB. And like, that's the kind of stuff you want. Do I have any experience DJing? I did one live mix ever with a DJ controller. It was boring as fuck. What producer would I like to collab with? Noisia. Remember me or something B. I don't know what that means. How do you make your drums sound big without clipping the rest of the sounds? Sidechaining. How do you talk about drum programming, specifically how to make glitchy effects like Aphex Twin? That involves a lot of just super randomization. Although, let's talk about BreakTweaker for a second. Let's do that. So, you might have noticed on Facebook, I linked to a contest on Beatport that said it was about using BreakTweaker to, and then you win. It's a BT thing. Like, I put it on Facebook. So basically the contest is use BreakTweaker in a track, submit the track, and then win. And BreakTweaker is this. BreakTweaker is basically a sequencer that kind of combines elements of stutter edit, as they're both designed by BT. So let's, for example, let's make a beat. So when I was, my mouse. When I was messing around with drum samples earlier with a snare sample that I used, it's in this folder called samples. And these are actually the samples that come with BreakTweaker. I don't think you get these samples when you get the demo, because when you use BreakTweaker for the contest, they give you a free 10-day demo. But when you actually get it, it comes with a sample pack that's full of these awesome ass samples. So let's get some stuff. Not hip hop, electro. Whatever. Actually, okay. So the way that we do this, we're gonna go into track and click on this button, which gets us this window on generator type sample, and I can yerp, and now I have a sample. That's cool. That's a kick. Let's get a snare. Sure. I got a sample. Boink. And we notice that there's other generator types. There's also a synth, and there's actually a lot of really cool a lot of really neat things you could do with the synth, which I did none of. Have ever at any point done any. Sample. This guy sample already is there. So I want to get another snare. I want to get one that I can use for a break. Yeah, sure, that one. Doop. That's like the fill snare. I'll show you what I mean. I'm at hats. Let's just find a hat of some kind. Sure. Yeah, why not? And a ride. Let's go to ride. Ride. Symbol ride. Nice. I can actually load up to 3 samples for parallel play, and you can do stuff like change the start and end points. And it's actually selected by samples. How cool is that? You can do playback mode, forward, reverse, forward, that kind of thing, all this nifty stuff. But the real genius comes from what you can do with the actual sequencer. So the way this works is that down here we have various patterns, and where do the patterns start? They start at C4, I guess. So I'm gonna make. Well, it doesn't matter, but like if I wanted to play it, I'd have to put down a MIDI note C4, like here, and then when I play the pattern, it would play the thingy. However, when we're in BreakTweaker, and we're not playing anything outside of BreakTweaker, we can just hit the preview button and it'll play it. So let's put down like a beat. We're at 130. Today, boom, pa. So notice how the length of the note actually turns the length of the sample is playing as well, because this sample was much longer originally. Yeah. So we're able to shorten it up. And remember that for when you're doing kicks and snares, because some of these snare samples are a lot longer than, but not this one apparently. Anyway, so yeah, cool, we have a sequence. Now we get to use the micro edit. So let's do that on the snare. So I actually turned off retrigger here, because when I did have retrigger on for this guy, for example, it just retriggers it. But if I have retrigger off, it actually plays through the whole sample and it makes the cuts. So if I did it with the super duper, and what's funny about this is that this configuration exists at the beginning and the end of the actual note. So if I did this, it takes longer. Now you just saw me put the note beyond the end of the pattern, and you might be thinking, "What the hell, man?" And one of the neatnesses is that, like, by default, what you can do is you can make them longer. But here's the thing: is that you can actually make these longer. You can make these longer, and not make any of the other ones longer. So like if I did this, for example. So if you want some real break chaos, that's one way to do it. I have no idea what this is going to do. Doing it on the kick and the snare is pretty brave. That's a good time. Who's got questions? How can I approach people like UEFI without just you guys not responding on some links, and I don't want to send links so I don't annoy you? Well, just do it, and then we will or we won't. That's pretty much all there is to that. I'm making original sounds for Big Room House. I would recommend you don't make Big Room House. Whatever. Sharp sounds, you know, plucks, that kind of stuff. AU5, it's not a separate pack that you can get from Isotope. I don't know if you can get that from separate from Isotope. I haven't tried. I don't know. I alpha tested BreakTweaker, which is the reason why I'm not in that contest. But that pack comes with BreakTweaker. Probably not the demo. Seamless old school jungle. I keep saying that. I don't know what you mean. Where'd you get all those AU5 samples from? I just explained that. I have people that just send stuff to me all day that don't better me. I talk to people that look up to in production. Yeah, I would too. That's not a problem that's gonna stop. by you getting better. That's gonna be a continual thing. Like I am like hardcore lucky that like BT decided to contact me, because like he is the only other person that I've talked to that like exceeds my technical expertise. Like he's too intense. He is too intense. So yeah, BreakTweaker is that number, $250. But you can get the free trial to do the contest, the thingy. My opinion on deadmau5. deadmau5 makes some cool tracks. He's really good at writing things. Like his melodies and chords are particularly inspiring. I enjoy that. Which badass snares volume do you have? Volume 2, I think. Seamless, I dare you to make a track over 200 BPM that isn't halftime. So like really, really fast drum and bass. Like old school, like Aphex Twin kind of stuff. Have I messed around with SeamlessR's modules yet? Modules? Like his sound effects pack? Like I do have Sonics. It's pretty cool. I haven't messed around with it. If you talk about his modular rack, no, I haven't messed around with that. But there's a bunch of cool sounds in Sonics that are actually part of that. Like if you go to frequency generation. Sounds kind of like aliasing, doesn't it? That's explicit. No, I want to open. Fender modular knobs. Yes, those 85 samples are from BreakTweaker. Have I used Synth Builder? I don't know what that is. I've used Synth Maker. I used it to make a custom ring modulator once. Do you know some hints on how to make complextro like Madian? My general arrangement advice, the way that I go about doing arrangement when I don't know what I'm doing, like, because sometimes you'll know what you want to do, but if your goal is just to do something but you don't know what to do, my method is you go to your arrangement window and you make a bar. You make one loop. You make the tiniest loop you can make, be it a bar, the bar being the smallest amount, but make the loop. I'd be like, yay, cool, loop, and like cut stuff up and put stuff around and just like shit, just make a bunch of shit. And then you'll realize that parts of it work, parts of it don't. Keep the parts that do, move it around until it does, and like that kind of thing. And then you have a whole loop. Let's call this the loop. And then we say, cool, I want it now, bam, copy it. Now you got a 4-bar loop. So now by now you have a motif. Like this sets the stage for like what the sort of motif is, and then you can get to continue the motif. Now you can like make some changes around, like make slight adjustments. You can make crazy adjustments if you want, but like I would recommend slight adjustments. And once you've got this, then you make a fill. Make when you're in your drums, which are Logic consistent, make a fill at the end of the 4 bars, and then copy it again. Now you have 8 bars. So the major change between this is that you want to make a larger fill. You want to make a larger fill at the end of the 8 bars. I can't do that, that's why. And so again, here, same thing, make, more changes, variations, keep it interesting, but still keep it vaguely familiar, because you can still kind of see, even just visually, the pattern is still similar, because they want to know what they're listening to. You don't want to make a really radically different song just after this. But then you copy it again. And then you make the biggest fill at the end of 16 bars, because now you're in the B drop. This is basically my key to arrangement, and I've done this in pretty much every track, unless I have like an actual idea of what I want to do. Like if I knew, for example, Codename Hurricane, I knew that melody before I did anything else. I knew that that's what I wanted to do, so I did that first, and then I did everything else. So like it stemmed from that. Things have to stem from something, but if you have nothing to stem from, this is a pretty good way to make a stem. So that's how I say that. Headphones monitors I use. I use KRK ST8s. They are passives. Organic stuff. Too rough. I don't do light. Your lights are shining rays in my face. I find my songs really repetitive, can't seem to make new melodies. Any advice? You really just gotta keep doing stuff until you get something that works. Like at first, like unless again, like you study and you know what you're doing, then you can just do it. But if you don't know what you're doing, just do stuff. Like even if it sucks, especially if it sucks. Because if it sucks, that means whatever it is that you do, you'll remember what you did and then you won't do it again. Or later, you'll remember, hey, wait a minute, that thing I did that sucked that one time actually kind of works at this one particular moment. And then you remember that you did that, and then it'll work. You have to build in your mind a compendium of information about what does and what does not work based on your own experiences, which is a bit difficult to do when you have no experiences. So, stuck on making a riser. I actually spent the beginning of this stream doing risers. So when this is done, it's on YouTube. You can watch that again. Do I have Mountain Dew right now? Right now. I don't. I don't know what crushed up is. Hey, 5 samples are from BreakTweaker. How do I do collabs? Poorly. I like to use presets and use Nexus. It's clean sounding. I can't make sounds. That's fine. I mean, if you use presets, you use Nexus, you use sample packs and whatever, I am okay with that. I exist as a kind of a sound design elitist, and my track's whole existence revolves around some sound design experiment or some tour de force of technicality. That's me. It doesn't have to be you. Like, just make the music that you want to make, and like the whole reason why I do my tutorials is so that people they don't have to like be someone like me who spent 10 years learning all this just to make a relatively simple sound. Like, they can make the sound, they can make the song, and they can make everything else they want to make. So like, if you use Nexus, use Massive presets, use my presets, you know, whatever it is that you need to do to make the music that you want to make. Seamless to Seamless, where do you make money off? Patreon primarily, biggest income, which is you guys, so thanks for that. YouTube, ad revenue, lessons, which I do. Now, if you didn't know that I do lessons, I do $30 for an hour for one-on-one Skype lessons. If you're interested in that, hit me up on my email, seamlessrg@gmail.com. You can find it in the the about section of my Facebook page. What else do I do? Albums. I have an EP out. I have t-shirts now. Like, these are new things. I don't actually know how well that's gonna work out. I won't know until the quarter. I do things in quarters now. There are more things. I sell FLPs, you know, just some sample packs. I have sample packs on Black Octopus Sound. I make money from that. So that's pretty much my big thing. Notice how like actually selling music is like only a very tiny part of how I make money. This is because I never really thought that the idea that I would ever like make a sustainable living on selling music. That is a extremely unlikely thing for anybody, even like successful artists. So like, I made plans for failure. Is it worth sending tracks to a mastering engineer? Sometimes. I don't really trust any mastering engineer to kind of work on my tracks. And that's because they tend to be too careful. They tend to be too traditional and correct about how they handle things like clipping. And I'm not. And I like how it sounds, so I just do it myself. But I mean, if you're not me, then maybe. How much money do I spend roughly on new plugins and samples? $3,000 over like 4 years total. You think Dragon piano sample to Harmer is okay for making those cheaper pianos and say East West Dust and pianos option? Blah, blah, blah. So there's a couple of presets in Harmer that are piano samples. Like let's look at keyboard piano. That's a piano sample. I imagine that's a piano sample. It might actually be a piano sample. So it's a neat idea. You should explore it. Like I used my piano library that I use is East West Pianos, and that is an unbelievably expensive but unbelievably awesome piano library. And it's particularly awesome, but the thing is that unless you're making like piano solo, really complex piano shit, you don't need it. If you're just layering in high note octaves into like some really heavy 7 lines drop, you don't need extraordinarily expensive pianos. You could use FL keys for all I care. Like, that's how that works. Have I ever used Reason? No. We got about 2 minutes left, so I'm kind of lightning round. Punchy acoustic snares, please. Superior drummer layered with EDM snares. If you had to choose between never being able to listen to either of these genres for the rest of your life, would you choose metal or EDM? Well, if I'm going to go with just what I like, I could probably live without listening to EDM anymore and just doing metal, because metal is pretty awesome. But if I want to make money, then I would not listen to metal anymore. Have you ever used Nexus preset? Nope, I never. No. You said not make bigger, but it seems to be the most popular now. Well, I don't know why it's popular. I don't know. I don't make it because, like I explained earlier, I exist as a sort of a paragon of complexity. So me making bigger would be super duper hypocritical. Challenges, exercises, create a whole track in any genre anytime given to something. I make tracks from scratch, and it kind of takes like 20 hours minimum, so that's not gonna happen. Thought about doing scores and sound effects for films and games. Yes, and I have done that. I actually scored a friend of mine's horror-ish film. It's actually a sci-fi kind of thriller. It's kind of cool. It's indie film. Good job. I'm working on 2 video games. One is the Descent UDK mod. Google that if you don't know what that is. And the other one is the thing I'm not talking about. Make a Rega 180 drum step track. I probably could, but I'm not going to. Make something with presets just to start really complex shit to sound good. Collaborations with Muzzy. Maybe. How do you go about putting out an EP? Build a library of tunes and choose which one to go to pick track EPs. Well, when I did the whole EP thing, I made tracks specifically for EPs, like for the EP. Like I sat around just being like, oh, I want to make tracks, because at the time, every track that I had was already out, and you don't want to have, like, what was I gonna do? Re-release Resolve? Like, that's not how labels work. Labels don't like old tracks. Let's put that out there. Is FL Keys an alright alternative to East West? I did kind of just say that just now, but I kind of said that with incredible qualifiers of, like, in extremely specific circumstances. As in terms of, like, is it a better piano library? No. East West Pianos is probably the best. Waves plugins, never needed them. I mean, I don't. Do you test a song with different quality speakers? Sometimes. For front piano. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Come to Brazil. Peru loves me. I love Peru. As someone who wants to learn advanced music theory but doesn't have time, what would you recommend doing? Varying in tutorials. And experimenting. Just a whole lot of experimenting. Like, I went to college for music theory, but that mostly just put labels on stuff I already knew. Collaboration with Noisy. Yeah. Why aren't I on Monster Cat? Because I'm signed to Fixed. Collaborate. Do you celebrate National Beard Day? I didn't know that was a thing. Would you say it is better to release tracks fast weekly or save them for albums? That depends on if you're on a label or not. If you're not on a label, then do whatever the hell you want. Why do pads take up so much CPU? Because they're using a lot of voices. Remix Scary Bass is not Sprite. It's the exact same sound. Not going to happen. Not a single person has ever done that, to my knowledge. Exit Festival. Poland. Hi, Poland. Russia loves me too. Yay, Russia. Minecraft. No. Well, yes, but no. Why don't I do shows, gigs? Because I haven't figured out what I want to do for my live act yet. I don't want to DJ. I don't want to do that. I like the idea of doing the show, but, like, I'm from a metal band. I like metal-ish instrument performances, and that's kind of not how my music rolls. So once I figure that out, I'll probably do something. I love you. Who would you like to collab in the future? Noisia? I keep saying that. What mic am I using? I am using an Audio-Technica AT2020. This actually came for free with my PreSonus Fire Studio interface. It's a pretty nice mic. You know what? Yeah. Is it gonna refocus? Is it gonna do it? That doesn't matter, it's too small. Have you ever been contacted by a company to have your song either featured in the game? No, and that's actually not gonna happen at any point, because now that I'm signed to Fix, that's kind of their job. They have their own little music service that's for that, so when that ever happens, they're the ones that deal with it. Do you have contact with Xylent? Yes. Heavy bass without top end. A filter. Low pass. We're pretty much done here. So I'm going to go watch The Raid 2 because it's the most brutal action martial arts film ever made since The Raid 1. And I'm going to go do that. I had a lot of fun answering your questions. Tomorrow will be the track from scratch, continuation of the drum and bass track, finally. And stuff will be good. Collaborate with Meth Juice. If by that you mean Mefuse, then that'd be kind of cool. Which of my favorite metal producers do I follow? I don't really follow metal. I just kind of let it happen to me, which I think is the best way to have metal happen. Anyway, I had a good time. This will go up on YouTube immediately. I'm just going to go do that. Seamless was my gamer tag. What passes for a gamer tag on the PC world because I actually have an Xbox. Favorite is my right ear. Still answering questions.